This map is rapidly becoming one of my favorite builds so far that I've done. And that's both in terms of its aesthetic and style and the character and everything that I've been putting into it. And I'm not saying that just from like a standpoint of like tooting my own horn or something like that. This is just really a very interesting build to me, and it's something that I guess has been floating around in my head for a very, very long time. And I'm not only just enjoying the build itself and the way that it's shaping up, but just exploring different techniques and different assets and doing things a little bit differently than I have, let's say, for the P&B or the Dayton and Troy, or pretty much any number of other builds. And it kind of makes me excited for the future because I feel like I was already pretty happy with the work that I was doing previously, like on the P&B. I mean, some of that stuff was a little bit dated, but that's because it was an old map. In this case, it's all new, and I could use new assets and stuff like that. So it's a little bit different, but the fact that I was already happy with some of my previous builds, and then I'm really happy with this one, it's just, you know, it just goes to show that over time, if you practice and you keep exploring different things, you can get better and better. And that goes for a lot of different things, and this is definitely no different. So here in episode, I think this is episode number 8 now, we're making some progress going through the series. We're going to be at 10 pretty soon. Today we are continuing our expansion west, which is what we're pretty much going to be doing for this entire series. And I wanted to just do a little bit of work through this section. This is going to be kind of a shorter video because I'm trying to pre-record a little bit so I can get a video this week and a video the week of Thanksgiving, and hopefully maybe I can get a video after Thanksgiving because I am going to be taking an entire week off for the holiday and doing some traveling and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. Next one will probably be a little bit shorter. But the first thing I wanted to do is work on this area next to the tracks. And you may have noticed, you'll see it more as we build on. But one of my favorite parts of this area is how the tracks are way higher on a grade than the road. And this is something that's very characteristic of the Catskill Mountain branch up in the Catskills. Heading out west towards around the High Mount area, Bel Air Mountain is out there right now. You had a very, very steep grade on the railroad. It was like, I think 3.5% or almost 4%. Very, very steep. In fact, when it was the Ulster and Delaware Railroad, which was the U&D, they got the nickname the old Up and Down because the grade was so steep that engines actually, or trains, had to actually double the grade. So they cut their train in half at the bottom of the grade and then head up to High Mount, drop half their train off, go all the way back down, grab the other half, and then bring it back up. So I'm not trying to use that as a verbatim sort of thing. But if you drive out there currently, right now, you'd see that the railroad bed is adjacent to Route 28, which is not a major highway, but it's a pretty busy roadway out there. And you'd notice that the road, regular vehicular traffic, has a very steep grade, and the railroad is right next to it, but it's like 30 feet on a ridge next to it. And obviously this is because cars can traverse a higher grade than the railroad. So anyway, that was a really roundabout way of saying that was kind of a look that I wanted to go for here. And as the railroad climbs into the mountains, I just wanted to express how steep the grade could actually be by showing the significance and the difference between the way that the road can go and the way that the railroad tracks have to go. So that was a really roundabout, long way of trying to say something. But anyway, I want to talk about what's happening on the screen here. If you notice at the beginning, I started off with a very different gas station, and I went and detailed this whole scene and built this whole gas station here, and then I deleted it. If you rewind just a little tiny bit, you'll notice that the load levels, the level of detail, was really bad on that gas station. And I was really excited to use it because I was like, oh, an asset that's kind of like new to me. It's not something that I've used before. Let me give it a try. And I spent all this time detailing it, and I went like 30 feet away, and the first level of detail like kicked in, and it just lost all detail. It just turned into a box. So I was like, nope, that's not gonna work. So the next best thing that I know of is this gas station here, which is a jointed rail asset, and it's significantly more modern than the time period that I'm modeling. So this route is supposed to take place in the early 90s, and clearly this gas station is very much modern. That's just something I'm gonna have to, and we're gonna have to just turn a blind eye to, because I can't do anything about it. There's only a handful of gas station assets on the download station, and some of them are pretty like dated looking. They look, you know, Trainz 2004 like. So I did want to have something that was kind of detailed, so we're gonna have to kind of look the other way on this one. But so I went ahead and I deleted that original gas station. It was an HP gas station. It would actually be a pretty good asset if somebody corrects the LODs on it and it makes it so it doesn't disappear like 30 feet away. But anyway, so I deleted that and then just kind of refilled in the area with some of the assets that I want. I'm probably going to come back through here and do a little bit more detailing. I kind of just did a high level pass of this area and just threw in a couple trash cans and a few smaller detail items and stuff like that. But I really didn't spend a whole lot of time detailing this one specific spot because, as I always say in my videos, I try not to spend a ton of time on any one specific area or thing. So I kind of, my logic is to sort of pick a region or a section of track, maybe a half a mile section of track or a mile section of track, and kind of work on that. So it's a little bit varied. So I didn't want to spend the entire episode, knowing that this was going to be a shorter episode, I didn't want to spend the entire episode just working on a gas station. So that's pretty much the first half of this episode, I guess, is this gas station. And these are probably going to be the final details that I put in at the moment, so just a couple of cars. And then I turn my attention back to the right-of-way, and I really have to say I'm very happy with the way that the scenery is shaping up. As I was saying in the previous episode, I was a little upset about some of these shrubs, and they were getting a little samey. So there's been a very short amount of time between when I recorded the last episode and when I recorded this one. They were pretty much back to back. So I haven't actually taken the time to add any new assets in there. I might go back to some of the JVC shrubs that I used to use that are kind of small if I need some small stuff. But what's really been working for me is these JVC shrub splines, which you'll see me use pretty frequently in here as sort of like an underbrush asset. And it does, when combined with like other grasses and other shrubs and stuff like that, it does a really outstanding job of creating underbrush and just filling in some of these spots. And man, I'm just really thrilled with how this section kind of turned out. If you're on my Discord, you already saw a screenshot of this like a week ago of this area, kind of a little bit of a spoiler. But I couldn't not share it because I was just so excited. So just a moment ago, I went ahead and I took the copy and paste tool and taking what I had learned from the last episode, I decided that I was going to fill in the mountainside and fill in the tree line right now instead of doing that later. So that way I kind of have like an idea of what the scene is going to look like and how it's shaping up and that sort of thing. So I decided to do that not first, but right away. I wanted to take care of it as soon as I could. And that really helps. I think that that's something that I'm going to do more going forward, is just begin to fill in the area with the copy and paste stuff. Because those are things that aren't really relevant to the video making process necessarily, like you see that I'm doing it, but it doesn't really add much to the video, I don't think. But anyway, going forward, I'm probably going to be doing that more frequently and then spending more time trackside and detailing the scenes that need to be detailed. And here I'm kind of moving into some new trees. I've decided I picked out a few pine trees. I'm not familiar with pine trees, so I don't know if they're like Douglas fir trees or what kind of pines they are, but they look pretty similar to the ones that I see in the Catskills, and I wanted to begin to implement these in. And the thing with pine trees that's really funny, if you ever go into a mountainside or into a hillside and you look at it, you'll just see pine trees like in these big groups and like patches. And I think that has to do with the fact that, like, I don't know of many animals that like eat pine cones, you know? So when a pine cone falls out of the tree, I think the seeds don't really go too far away. So you end up with these really dense patches of pine cones, and maybe, you know, some get strewn out a little tiny bit from rainfall or wind or something like that. But they really, for the most part, don't spread out as widely as regular deciduous trees. So I wanted to start working those in to add a little bit of diversity, for one thing. And two, I just think that they look good, and it's a really nice alternate texture to begin to blend in there. And I really like these little tiny pine trees because, again, I feel like that's something that I see pretty frequently along the trackside, like old road beds, is pine trees. They seem to like shoot up out of the ground really quickly. The first chance that they get, they will spawn. So wanted to include those wherever I could, kind of close to the tracks, but not super close. And they blend really nicely. I'm really, really pleased with how these assets are beginning to blend together in this forested area, because when I was building this, I was really, really apprehensive, I think. I was afraid that these TB assets weren't going to blend well with the STRMM trees, the 3D trees, and then the grasses. Like it started to concern me a little tiny bit. I just didn't feel like it was blending properly, but I'm really, really pleased with how this blending mode turned out. Just adding some of these 3D trees mixed in with the regular billboard trees, and somehow there's just enough like texture and differentiation in color. You can even see it in that most previous shot there. There's just enough color and texture difference, but similarities to really make a convincing forest, at least from this perspective. And I even checked it, like going down to track level. I don't usually get down to track level too often. If you've been following me long enough, you know this. I play from this sort of aerial perspective. That's just my choice, and that can be a little bit of a detriment, a little bit damaging to your like detailing and stuff like that if you're always just looking at it from one perspective. So it's important to, like right there, it's important to get down low and try to see exactly how scenes are shaping up from a regular point of view instead of this God's eye point of view. But anyway, starting to bring in and blend in some of these spline assets. The TB splines were just blending really nicely with some of this JVC grass and those JVC shrubs. And it just all started to come together. And I'm really getting excited by this now. If you could probably hear it in my voice, I'm just really... this scene is just so cool, and I think you'll agree once you see the cinematics at the end. Seeing a train pass through here is just really pleasing. It's really cool. There's a little bit more detail work I got to do on the left side of the screen there, right, like roadside. But you know, it's not bad as it is. It feels like a country road going sort of up into the woods. Maybe there's some rural houses back there. Obviously, I wanted to have the gas station there because, you know, we could be miles outside of town. Where's the nearest gas station? So people got to get their get their gas. They got to get their KFC. Got to get their convenience stuff. So again, using the spline grasses is really great for hillsides and stuff like that, because the spline, unless you use the spline height adjustment tool, the full mesh of the spline will kind of configure to your terrain, so it spreads out nice and evenly, and it doesn't float, which is nice. But if you use that spline height adjustment tool, you can end up with some floating splines and non-terrain conforming stuff. But it is really nice that if you're doing like a big fill like this or a big ridge or something like that, the grass splines are a really good choice for getting that texture in there and getting the color and that sort of thing. And then you don't have to like sit there and try to manually adjust the height of every single blade of grass or whatever, grass patch, whatever it is. It's a lot easier to deal with, and the effect is pretty good. But that's it for today's episode. Like I said, I'm really happy with this episode. I'm sorry it's a little bit on the shorter side, but just take a look at these cinematics, man. It's just it's gorgeous. Like the lighting settings, I think I finally nailed it. I've been messing around with that off camera, and they just look really good. But anyway, that's it. I'm gonna leave it here. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys in the next one.